Hey everyone, it's the Koopa Man. Well, as you probably picked up from previous videos, I love Dragon Ball. Fucking love it. It's up there as one of my top manga franchises of all time. Hot take, I know. Just under Hellsing as my number 1, and my number 3 is One Piece for the record. But this is hardly a controversial take. Dragon Ball is one of the most influential media franchises of all time. Up there with Super Mario and Mickey Mouse. To the point where there is unironic demand for Goku in Smash Bros. Or Kingdom Hearts, despite the fact that those movements started as memes, and it break what both series are trying to do. I mean, for Pete's sake, Goku even has a balloon in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. An American institution, being one of a couple of Japanese characters with such a distinction, along with Pikachu and Luffy. And that's not getting into the Dragon Ball theme park being opened in Qiddiya City in Saudi Arabia. Heck, there was even a point, before I got into superhero comics as well, where I unironically believed that Goku could defeat Superman in a fight. Which I now know is blatantly false due to the scale of Dragon Ball and the scale of DC being what they are, and Superman being sort of an intentional Gary Stu with his power level. But there's one thing about the Dragon Ball franchise that doesn't get a lot of love. That being Dragon Ball GT. And this isn't without reason. After Dragon Ball Z ended, Toriyama took a nice long break, presumably forever, and Toei was left to try to find their own way to keep the franchise going with new content. Sure, they did have plenty of movies, but this was the mid-90s. One Piece and Naruto weren't a thing yet. It was Dragon Ball or fucking nothing. So, with Toriyama's blessing and even a couple of hand-drawn designs, Toei Animation set forth to make their own continuation of Dragon Ball, and they would use a lot of the elements from their own filler material, such as the Tuffles, callbacks to previous movies like Wrath of the Dragon or Fusion Reborn, and the like. The thing is though, when Toei do their own creative stuff without either transparently tracing over the existing stories in the manga for stories in their movies, or making up filler material wholesale, their quality is rather a mixed bag. Still is to this day, if anyone remembers my gripes with the Dragon Ball Super anime, which was also a mostly Toei-led adaptation. That isn't to say that GT could have never been good, or is completely without merit, as some more hyperbolic fans will say. There is a reason, besides Toei being the ones who license the games, why the GT stuff keeps getting brought into various Dragon Ball video games and toy lines and stuff. There's a lot of good in there, it's just, you know, buried under Toei's own Toei-ness. Look, this is supposed to be a defense of Dragon Ball GT, not another in a long conga line of videos of Dragon Ball fans hyperbolically trashing it, so let's get into it. Is Dragon Ball GT as bad as some people say? No, not really. This doesn't mean that it's nearly as good as the original story of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, but it's not as bad as fucking Dragon Ball Evolution. If anything, GT is really the best we could have gotten from Toei for a whole series, when normally they only did their own content for filler episodes, and the filler Garlic Jr. and Great Saiyaman arcs, and the tie-in movies. I mean, Toei had made their own original series before. Heck, they even were able to make a looser adaptation of Sailor Moon that remains fairly popular to this day, but for the most part, this was them flying without a safety net. Toriyama had very little input and was leaving them mostly to their own devices, for better or worse. So there was a lot of pressure on GT to be as good as Z at the very least, and those were, to be frank, very unrealistic expectations given the circumstance. Now, I won't break down the story saga by saga as it's been done before, and that'd just be transparent padding. We all know the story. Black Star Dragon Ball Saga that leads to Baby. After Baby is Super 17, and that leads to the Shadow Dragons. And it ends with Goku fucking off with Shenron for 100 years, and a time skip showing his and Vegeta's descendants fighting at the World Martial Arts Tournament. And a tie-in epilogue movie nobody ever talks about that much. Instead, I'll break down the criticisms that I and most other fans have before going into what people love about the series. That way, a fair overall take can be drawn from it. To start, one of the bigger problems is the lore behind the Black Star Dragon Balls that kick off the start of GT's story. and more, these were a flawed set of Dragon Balls created by the son of Katas before he split himself into Kami and Piccolo. They can grant any wish beyond what Shenron is even capable of, even killing people if one desires. However, once a wish is granted, they scatter across the cosmos, and if they're not returned in 1 year's time, the Earth goes kaboom. Now, this is all well and good, but it brings up a number of questions. Like, why the hell would the son of Katas make these with such a massive drawback? Or, how did these Dragon Balls reactivate when Kami fused with Piccolo, if Piccolo Jr. is sort of a different entity from Demon King Piccolo? Or, why didn't this come up before, like in the Cell Saga?
It just raises too many questions.
In the end, though, they're just a transparent plot device to get Goku to be turned into a child and go into space to have an adventure akin to the first few arcs of Dragon Ball. It's really that simple. Speaking of, another criticism people have is with Goku being de-aged into the form of a child. Originally, Toriyama threatened to quit if he wasn't allowed to have Goku age into an adult in the second half. So you can likely chalk this up to Shueisha being petty, or there being a legitimate nostalgia for the Kid Goku era. And while I do find it a little bit silly, I don't mind GT Goku being a kid as much as most people. At least he's only physically reverted into a child and not mentally like he was in Dragon Ball Super's anime adaptation. Heck, I'll even go as far as to say that there is good story potential there. Even Toriyama thought so. That's why he did it again in Daima. Granted, it's sort of a non-starter as they never resolved this issue by the end of GT. Oh well. If it was a 1, maybe 2 arc thing, it wouldn't be that much of an issue, but hindsight is 20/20. Though speaking of character ages, Toei seems to portray a lot of the characters as a bit older than they should be. For example, Krillin, who should be in his early 50s, looks more like he's in his mid-60s, maybe pushing 70. And it's especially odd since he's the only human who got hit with this stick. Yamcha and Tien, who are older than he is, look younger, closer to their 30s. And of course, then there's Pan, Goku's granddaughter and Gohan and Vidal's daughter. And Bra, Vegeta and Bulma's second-born daughter. They dress and act as mid to late teenagers, sort of like how Bulma would be at their age, maybe a bit younger. And they even get treated with the same fan service angles as Bulma did, like with how they both dress and that scene where a baby deer tries to breastfeed off a pan. But the thing is, they're both supposed to be younger than 13, and they aren't portrayed as such. They don't act as such, and while remembering this fact makes it kind of creepy, now that I care about 2D images, I'm not a retard like the guy running the green Reddit. But this is more of a case of GT not knowing how old characters should be overall. And there is also the matter of tone in the first 15 episodes. It's very lighthearted and comedic, which is not a problem in and of itself. Dragon Ball started as a more comedic series. The issue is it's because it's a hard juxtaposition against the stakes of if they don't collect the Black Star Dragon Balls, the Earth is going to fucking explode. If that high set of stakes were not there, it'd be a lot more of a return to form without that grim reminder hanging in the back of our minds. Goku is turned into a kid, goes with Trunks and Pan into space to find a new set of Dragon Balls, adventure ensues. You don't need to have the dire stakes to increase the stress level when they're already getting in trouble on their adventures. And then when Baby is introduced midway through their adventure, it becomes a more natural escalation of stakes when he becomes the main villain. Why even have Baby use the Dragon Balls to destroy the Earth when he can simply do it himself like Boo did, or like Cell almost did, or like Frieza was going to do, etc., etc. And of course, to deactivate the Black Star Dragon Balls, fan favorite Piccolo, Toriyama's favorite character, and avatar of the editor Torishima, decides to stay dead and remain in hell to keep them deactivated forever, which was an incredibly stupid waste of a good character. As is Good Boo permanently fusing with Oob, who ends up being a go-nowhere character anyway. But aside from that last issue with Majub, almost all of the problems with the first half of GT are tied to the Black Star Dragon Balls. Remove them from the picture, and everything gets a lot more tolerable. Again, this is why Dragon Ball Daima did exactly that when it used the bones of GT's first story arc. There are issues with the later 2 arcs as well. Super 17 is something that is, while a neat idea, poorly developed and mostly ends up being a weird retelling of Fusion Reborn with elements of Wrath of the Dragon. And the Shadow Dragons, while an interesting concept, sort of just punishes the heroes for using the Dragon Balls for heroic deeds, when they should be a punishment upon Bulma for using the Dragon Balls for vanity purposes.
Shenron's like, damn.
There, Shenron, I want a fatter ass!
That wish is beyond my power.
But all joking aside, neither Super 17 nor the Shadow Dragons are bad ideas. They just are ideas that needed a little more time in the oven, and it showed. Overall, Toei treated GT like a filler arc, and it makes sense when it ultimately was a filler epilogue series. And for filler, it's much better than the Garlic Jr. saga they did there in Z, and better than a handful of their movies as well. Super Saiyan 4 is a great form, and there's a reason it has fans. It's taking the idea of Super Saiyan and reintroducing the Uzaru elements to turn the concept on its head, as if this is what a Super Saiyan of pure Saiyan blood is supposed to be. Not the Golden Warrior we were seeing before in the bargain sale, but a Saiyan who's fully mastered Uzaru ape form to the point where his body has taken the mass and power of a massive ape without the drawback of being a bigger target. Baby as well is an interesting villain. The sins of the Saiyans past coming back to haunt them in the form of a Tuffle machine mutant set on eradicating them. Yeah, it's a bit of a rip-off of Plan to Eradicate the Saiyans, with a Tuffle scientist inventing a super weapon to wipe out the remaining Saiyans. But as the concept goes, most probably prefer this to Hachiyak, especially as Baby was such a fun yet vile villain, and the body snatcher abilities were genuinely unnerving. And again, Super 17 is a cool design, so much so people design fan designs for a Super 18 as well. And the Shadow Dragons are mostly cool designs with cool powers. Omega Shenron is a great final boss for the series overall, and the fight between him and a fused Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is one of the highlights of the entire franchise. Heck, he's even thrown into Budokai 3 as the only GT villain in that game, being the only GT representation aside from Super Saiyan 4 Goku, Vegeta, and Gogeta. Basically, people are drawn to the positives of GT the way they're drawn to a lot of the elements from the Dragon Ball movies. Things like Z Broly, Cooler, Turles has an evil Goku, etc. When you try to break the movies down the same way people break down GT, they come out just as flawed, because what they are at the end of the day is the same thing. Filler material for the franchise, and there's nothing wrong with that if it's good, and people do like the good parts of GT, but it's an entire series and not a 1-hour movie, so there's more to criticize. That's really the gist of it. So why criticize the spec in GT's eye when there is a plank in Bio Broly's, or Broly the Second Coming, or the Metal Cooler movie, or Lord Slug, all of which are much worse than GT overall. Really, take GT for what it is, a flawed but otherwise decent filler epilogue series that was a nice cap-off to the franchise, a nice farewell to what was going to be the end of the franchise, and when you take it on that merit, you could have done a lot worse. So is GT that bad? No, not really. It's not the best, but it's also not the worst. Overall, I say it's a 7 out of 10 for a Dragon Ball story, and that's pretty damn decent. But that's all I got. Hopefully I can convince some people to give GT another chance just by taking it on its own merits and understanding the context. But considering the Dragon Ball fan base are pretty unga bunga and old trends do die hard, I'm not holding my breath. If nothing else, at least all the songs are bangers. Anyway, this has been the Koopa Man. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe as it helps my channel grow. If you also don't feel GT was bad, talk about it in the comments as I'd love to hear your guys' takes. And until next time, game on.